So I have a confession to make. I am not actually a software engineer. I'm a garbage man. Just kidding. I'm actually a culinary worker. Hey, so what's poppin', everyone? So in this video, I'm going to give you some ideas of what I do as work, and some details about that, and of course, what is my ideal full stack stack. Because if you did not know, I am a full stack software developer. So I work on software, and of course, that has different parts of it. So I'll give you some details into that. So the idea for this video actually came from Saad Asif. Sorry if I'm saying that name wrong, but he said I should make a video of what I do as work and details about that. So that is what I'm doing right now. So if you have video ideas or something related to AWS or software engineering or careers, just give me a comment. I'll be trying my best to make a video about it if I like the idea, I guess. Also, make sure to triple click that like button for the YouTube algorithm. That'll help me a lot. Thanks. Ching! So I'm not actually going to tell you where I work for like security reasons, but I will tell you I work at like a mid-sized company and mostly doing like web development work, so kind of like front end and back end work. And then I'll tell you each of the technologies that I prefer to use and may or may not use those on the job. I don't know. Like I might use them outside the job. Who knows? All right, so let's take a quick look at the full stack, because my job is a full stack. Anyway, so I found this. It was like on Programmer Humor, like a subreddit, and it's kind of like the full stack of kind of the technologies like a web developer would use, or maybe not even web developer, because there's like Android, IBM. So this is full stack of general developer. So let me start with the bottom, because you got to build a good foundation. And I mainly use AWS and I guess Windows. I develop on a Mac, but that's not really important on what machine I develop on, because it can be like Windows. I'm using Windows right now, and I develop on a Mac, so it doesn't really matter. Anyways, I use AWS as a platform, as you might be able to tell, since a lot of my videos right now are on AWS. I mean, I might change that in the future. I might go to Azure or Google. I mean, probably not, or I might make videos about other stuff in the future. And then, so that's the big bun, and that's, I guess, without the bun, everything would be resting on the meat, and nobody wants that to happen. Oh, that sounds weird. So I guess this bottom platform, or the bottom bun, is like the platform of like what it all rests on, right? So it can be AWS, Azure, or cloud provider. It could be iOS, like or Android. So it could be on your phone. It could be like on a website. It can be IBM. I'm not sure why IBM. I guess they're a cloud provider here as well. You can be like Azure is another cloud provider, and then of course Linux would be the operating system here as well. So then there's also like there's Chrome as an operating system. But then above that is kind of like what many people focus on when they think of like a developer. They think on what language should I know, and really it doesn't matter what language. Just pick one and learn it. Although I do have a lot of videos like criticizing like PHP and like some bad languages because they're kind of like outdated. Like PHP is like 50 million years old. So I have a series called Killing the Caveman, just trying to make people not use that, but it doesn't really matter in the end. If it gets the job done, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so what I mainly use is Node.js and TypeScript. So for like the back end, I like to use TypeScript because it is very kind of like Node.js and kind of like Java as well, because you can kind of like declare types and stuff like that. So Java is nice as well. Those are my like favorites, I would say. I know a bit of C#, but not really much. And then Docker, I guess Docker isn't technically, I guess it is a language, but I mean, so Docker you can just use to like use multiple, I guess kind of like get everything into a container, but I don't really use that. Mainly Node.js and TypeScript, which isn't on here, but oh well. So one thing to note, they don't have the pickles labeled as anything, which is interesting. So I also use I use kind of like serverless as like the model for how like we package up Lambda functions. So Lambda functions aren't really here because they're kind of like part of AWS, so maybe that's kind of included there. But maybe these pickles are kind of like the, so maybe like the serverless framework or the CDK. I like using CDK because it is, I guess, You don't have to lay out the CloudFormation templates, which is great. You don't have to like make the CloudFormation templates by themselves, but serverless framework can do the same thing. And that's kind of like using like making infrastructure as code. That's what the CloudFormation templates will do. I do plan to make another video on CDK, kind of like the basics of it. So if you don't know much about CDK, which is the cloud development kit, it's kind of made by AWS, then I will make another video about that, kind of detailing what it is. So after the meat comes the database level. And I guess not every application requires database per se, but I really like NoSQL. Of course, PostgreSQL is great as well. Like it really depends on your needs. You can't just say, I only use NoSQL or I only use Postgres. You kind of, a good developer, a good full stack developer would have like knowledge of all these tools. Of course, kind of like languages, you don't really need knowledge of all those languages, although some do fit or fix solution, like they solve problems better than others. Like for NoSQL, you can kind of like have everything in one table and kind of like with DynamoDB. Well, Postgres, you have multiple tables and multiple, it's kind of everything is spread out more. So, and then after the cheese is the tomatoes, which they don't really have anything listed as part of the tomatoes, but I like to use like SQS, SNS, S3 buckets, and those are all part of the AWS kind of like stack here. And of course, DynamoDB, which would be the NoSQL. But I mean, maybe those would be kind of near the pickles as well, because these are kind of, this is getting towards the level, the higher up you go on this full stack, full snack burger, the closer you get to the consumer, because at the top you have like what the user sees. But anyways, after all that is the lettuce, and this is kind of like the protocols that one might use to like communicate stuff. So yeah, what REST endpoints, SOAP, API, WebSockets, and what I use is REST endpoints, kind of like with the API gateways. So what will happen is like the front end will send a request to DynamoDB. It'll send a request to an API gateway, which will of course talk to the Lambda. So it all fits together. It'll talk to the Lambda written in Node.js on the AWS platform. And so those are the things I like to use. Of course, WebSockets can be useful as well. So they have their place, but I believe SOAP is kind of getting old. I think SOAP is a really old technology, but yeah, that's about like all I can say about SOAP. I don't use SOAP. I actually use SOAP. I shower, I swear. Oh, anyway, so the next part of this burger is like all these sesame seeds on the bun. And they all mean different things. Ajax, Angular, PhoneGap, Bootstrap, CSS, HTML, jQuery, JSON, React, JavaScript, PWA, and SPA. So I probably only use like half of these because a lot of these, like you're not going to use both of them. Like for example, you're not going to use React and AngularJS in the same application because that would just be weird, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure there's a way to use both of them in the same application. And the comments for this, the Vue was on here, Vue.js, another kind of like similar SPA framework, which SPA is a sesame seed. But anyways, yeah, of course, JavaScript is needed in these little, and for React.js and AngularJS. It really doesn't matter which one you use, although React.js is kind of used more. So if you're trying to pick a front-end framework, I would try to use one that is used more, because then, of course, there's more jobs, there's more, if you're ever trying to work with someone else, or if you're just doing like a startup kind of thing, then you would want to use one that at least more people know. And of course, that's React.js, at least right now in 2020. Who knows what's going to happen in like 1 year. That's the great part about this industry, is that stuff changes and you just kind of have to keep moving along with the industry. If you stop learning, you kind of become the caveman, and the caveman dies. So anyways, what else do I use in this top part? So of course I use CSS for like styling components and stuff like that. And then HTML is kind of, you kind of need HTML with React.js, like if you want to make a good web page, because that's kind of like how you detail out the component, the little the components of the web page. So there are some anti-patterns with this, like you're not going to be using JQuery if you're going to be using React, even though jQuery is like the #1 framework, or I believe library/framework for JavaScript. So it's kind of So many people use it, and I believe that's because it is used a lot with PHP, wherever that is. PHP is down here. Yeah, jQuery is used a lot with PHP, but once again, those are like older technologies. So I would kind of go with CSS, HTML, and React. Of course, Bootstrap is also pretty old as well, but I wouldn't recommend. I mean, you can use that. But don't use an older one. So since I'm not a phone developer, I had to actually look up what PhoneGap was, since it was a Sesame Seed. So it is used to build mobile apps, which I guess it makes sense. I should have guessed by the name, but I guess it's made by Adobe, and I'm not sponsored, by the way. Don't use this if you don't want to. But it sounds cool if you want to build some fine kind of phone app. But anyways, that was my I guess demonstration of what I consider to be the ideal stack, or at least the ones that I like to use. Of course, not all those things on that picture were in my ideal stack, but most of them were. And of course, that is the end of the video. So I hope you liked it. If you did not, then tell me why, and I'll try to change. I can change too. Anyways, subscribe and hit the like button, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.